Hello there. My name is Basil Malik, and I am the president and CEO of Malik Inc. And today we're on episode number 4 of Getting Started with No Code. Today is somewhat of a pivotal point in the discussion. We've talked about the origin of the journey, we've talked about the discussions and centralization of all ideas and thoughts about what a solution should look like or the thing that you're trying to accomplish with this journey into no code. And then number 3, we talked about the envisioning of the software, the user experience, all the things that effectively translate to the soft skills associated with making a software successful. With this next part, it's probably one of the more important decisions that you're going to have to make. Everything that we've talked about before now has been basically subject to conversation, idealization, brainstorming, figuring out a way to escape the escape room. With that, now we're left with, where do we go? You've got all this stuff, you've done all this talking. Now what do you do with all that data? The simple answer is you have to make a decision. The decision hinges on everything that you're trying to accomplish and making it fit into a specific software. Again, you're not necessarily required to pursue a standalone software. The one that we've been talking about predominantly in this series has been Creation, which is a no-code platform and a CRM combined. So there's a lot of flexibility on something like that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you need a structured solution to accomplish the end goal. You might find after a lot of discussion something really simple is the outcome. If that's the case, hooray, you found a short-term solution, but be very mindful as this thing evolves over time that you may need a centralized solution that is based in a software solution. So with that, you need to take into consideration that the thing that you develop in the beginning may not look the same in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Whatever you're trying to solve for has a life cycle of its own. And with that life cycle will prompt natural evolution within that solution. So you can't hope and pray that it's going to stay the same. Very rarely will it. We've been talking about a corporate wellness program, and I assure you, I can easily expand on this, and I will expand on as we continue to go through this series. We're starting with a very simple solution that we need to track employee activity to make sure that we can attribute are our employees working out? And if so, how can we build an incentive structure to encourage them to keep moving? Because healthy employees translate into more productive employees. Healthy employees typically translate into happier employees. Not always, but usually. So with that knowledge, we've talked about all the things that we want to accomplish with software. We've got an idea of the structure. We know the data points that we're trying to capture. We have an idea of the process in which they're going to do something in that very specific order. Where do you go from here? You have choices. You can look at Excel, you can look at Outlook, something very simple, but if you default to or recognize that you need a structured solution, then that's not the route that you want to go. So software evaluation is a very difficult and challenging thing because there's so much out there. You really don't know where to go. I would strongly recommend that you stick with something that is very well known, something that has a strong and vibrant ecosystem, because even if you start out with a partner, that partner may not always be your solution partner forever. There may come a time where your needs outgrow the partner that you have, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't have an ecosystem that has multiple options to have different partners, you're effectively painting yourself into a corner, and one that's not easy to get out of in the long term. Niche solutions that offer everything that you could want are great, but if the ecosystem or the number of people that can support it in your region that you are comfortable with working with, that is something you have to keep in mind, because if that's a small pool and you anger one out of possibly 100, there goes 1% of the population that can actually help you. That could be detrimental to the solution that you are trying to build and stand up for the long term, especially something like a corporate wellness thing, which would normally perpetuate year over year, month over month, grow, evolve, and eventually it might hit a plateau that is good enough for the long term. Great. But that solution that houses all of that corporate wellness capabilities and activities that needs to have a proper population that can support it. So keep that in mind as you're looking through it. So Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, HubSpot, Creatio, even each of these software solutions have an ecosystem. Some are growing, some are consolidating, some are waning because the technology just is becoming outpaced by competitors. There's a lot of different factors that you need to take into consideration. So on our board here, what I'm going to do is just give you what I would consider a very simple set of tools. You can do this on a whiteboard. You can do this again in Excel. I'm just going to illustrate it here. And you can simply bring in a mind map. A mind map is a very simple way of having a centralized theme that you are trying to evaluate and then attach all the different branches that you want. So for example, if I'm evaluating, let's put Salesforce, that would have been comical for more than one reason. We've got Microsoft Dynamics. We've got, let's do Creatio. And with these solutions, you want to start building out your thoughts. Think about the entirety of your solution and how they fit into each one of them. So Salesforce, one thing that you might want to take into consideration is cost. Maybe another thing is flexibility. The other one might be user experience or UX. And you'll go through this and you'll start documenting all the different things. So cost per user cost is, I forget what it is now. It seems a bit heavy for some of the more extensive and capable solutions. So Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, they all have individual per user per month costs. And I don't keep up with what they're charging, but per user per month for sales. Maybe that's where you want to build the solution. Great. That's a data point. Maybe you want to add something else in it. Strong ecosystem. And you want to go through and document facts. You want to document pros, you want to document cons. And the way I like to use mind maps is I have all of my ideas on one side and I have all of my pros and cons on the other. That way, whenever I'm done, I have a very easy delineation that says, here are all of my pros, here are all of my cons. So cost would be one that I would put for Salesforce. Another one might be percentage of use. You might only need 5% of Salesforce, but you still have to pay for 100% of it. So that's just an example of something like that. A pro would be it's got a strong ecosystem. You have a never-ending pool of apps on the App Exchange. You've got add-ins for days, which kind of goes back into that never-ending pool of apps, but kind of interchangeable. But this is effectively how I start building out my pros and cons list, as well as, that's not what I want to do. There we go. Break that back out. So you do this with every single solution that you're evaluating, and you can even do Excel. Every box has a use. Every box contains a system, and in that system, you should have the ways in which it will accomplish the end goal, facts about what this solution is going to offer, and on the other side, you should have pros and cons. Now, you still might have a bit of analysis paralysis at the end of it all, but you need to effectively get all of this thing on paper, very much like we did in step 2. Start documenting all the realistic solutions or opportunities that you have out there. Narrow it down to maybe your top 2, 3 even, and then evaluate a rubric. Maybe it can be, I like Salesforce because I use Salesforce at a previous job. Maybe it's, I like Creatio because I don't have to involve my partner every single thought that I want to bring to life within a solution. There are endless reasons why you might select one solution over another, but the things that I typically lean on are cost, availability of resources, ability to own, and where are they going with AI. That last one is a little bit more time sensitive based off of 2023, 2024, and where things are going in 2025, but it's still something to take into consideration. So if you look at it from that perspective, you then can say, okay, I've evaluated Salesforce, Dynamics, and Creatio, or Salesforce, Microsoft Excel, and Creatio. Salesforce is expensive. We have 100 users, so that might not necessarily be the best place for a one-off solution like a corporate wellness program. Makes sense. Excel, will work in the short term, but long term, it's going to become very restrictive. We're going to end up having so many different lines on the various spreadsheets. It's going to make it really difficult to keep track of entries. And on top of it, entries are going to be very manual and tedious for people to put in. So discourages them from using the solution. So go to something like Creatio. You've got other alternatives and other reasons why it's a good fit, why it's a bad fit. There is no such thing as a perfect fit. There will always be something that gives you pause for consideration. So push through that, make a decision, weigh the pros and cons. Again, after you feel like you've made an initial commitment, then commit. And then from there, you can actually go to the next step, which is bringing your solution to life. And the other thing to take into consideration, which has been somewhat an underpinning theme to a lot of this conversation, is the architecture. I cheekily said earlier that Salesforce is something that you might need 5% of, but you pay 100% for. Well, behind that system is a very complex architecture that may make it easier or more difficult to deploy your solution. So that's the other underpinning thing that I wanted to make sure that I called out before I terminated this particular lesson for today. Episode. I don't even know what the cool kids refer to these things as anymore. I just show up and talk. So hopefully you found this beneficial, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.